flows, you'll be loving it, alright?
Yeah, no, right, I know.
That's it, let's
Around
move
my
that.
spine.
Yeah, let's pick this up. Cleanse the mind. Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Business. I'm here today with the owner of Hailsham Chiropractic Clinic, Becky, and we're just going to learn a little bit about Becky, what she's done, her journey thus far, how she got here. So, Becky, we're here today in your clinic. Hello everybody. Hello Becky. And I've been coming here personally for I think over 2 years now, something
Brilliant.
like that. It's not you that I see. I come and see Gary,
Yeah,
one of your
that's
guys.
Yeah.
Let's delve right into it. We're here in your clinic. What started this?
So, when I was about 14, I was quite a talented hockey player at the time and hurt my back but kept very quiet because we were due to go on a hockey tour to Holland and didn't tell anyone until I literally couldn't stand up or sit down out of a chair. So my parents happened to know the chiropractor called Richard Brumry, who had at the time a clinic in Heathfield, and they took me to see him, and quite literally it was just like a miracle. The guy adjusted my pelvis and my sacroiliac joints, and made nice, good loud clicking noises, and I literally could immediately stand up and sit down without wanting to cry, so I just thought it was absolutely amazing. But didn't think I was probably clever enough to be a chiropractor, so I sort of just thought I'd go down the sports science route.
So we studied in college and...
It wasn't, because I then decided actually I wanted to be maybe a physio, but I then ended up getting a hockey scholarship to go to America, to university over there. So they didn't have an equivalent degree that I could have done, and if I'd done a physio degree there I would have had to have redone it in England, which seems odd. You wouldn't have to do that now, but you did at the time. So I did anthropology and African studies, as you do.
Served you well, obviously.
Yeah, totally, which was amazing, and played a lot of hockey. Spent a lot of time in the training room helping the physios with people's injuries and stuff like that, so I learned a lot in there. Anyway, when I got to Christmas, I always used to chat to a friend of mine on Christmas Day if I didn't chat to her throughout the year. And she said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, when I come back from uni, I'm going to go and do a master's degree in physio." And she went, "You don't want to do that?" And I was like, "Why not?" And she said, "Because I'm doing a degree that's physio times 10. Got nothing against physios, by the way, this was my friend's words. She said, "Oh, I'm doing a degree in chiropractic." I said, "Oh, I'm not smart enough to do that." And she was like, "Well, if I can, you can." And 3 weeks later, I was on the course and had left university in America and flew back, got all my things, started the course, and here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a random story, but yeah, it happened literally just like that. And then
I think a lot of us fall into paths we never saw coming.
And then the best part that I love about it is that who I bought this clinic of, Hailsham, of a chap called Scott, who used to be a chiropractor here, but he bought the business of this chap Richard Brumry, who was the first person that ever treated me. So we even still have some patients that we see that we have Richard Brumry's notes from back in the 80s and the 90s to when Scott took over, and then subsequently I've had this clinic 13 years tomorrow.
Incredible.
It's a nice sort of little circle.
Yeah. So, talk me through the qualification process. Is that something you have to study for several years? Is it a 2-year course? Or
yeah, so it's normally a 5-year course. And you do a lot of it's very similar to sort of doing a medicine degree.
Yeah.
Obviously we're not doing surgical components. We do a tiny bit of pharmacology, but obviously not like a doctor would, because obviously we can't prescribe as a chiropractor, but we still need to know when you come in and tell me you're taking X, Y and Z meds, how that may be affecting your body. And so it's a really intense, full-on course. Mine was especially intense because mine was actually a 3-year course run 5 years.
Just condensing the same.
So we literally had a week or two in between terms instead of months off for university holidays like lots of universities do. So it was literally sort of back to back to back. So it was incredibly intense. But obviously because I'd already done a degree first, I liked the idea of only having to do another 3 years at university rather than another 5. I don't think I would have done it if I'd done 5 because the thought of being a student.
Especially, yeah, like you say, because you've already done a stint at it.
Yeah, totally.
That's at the cost as well.
Exactly. I mean, relatively, I was lucky because I went to university in America that was fully paid for. I didn't have
Scholarship.
to pay anything, so yeah, so that paid for, well, literally everything. My books, my food, my flights, so,
I love that.
and some summer courses in Kenya. So yeah, good.
Yeah. So you've done your 3-year degree.
Yeah.
Worn out, ready for a rest.
Yeah.
Then where did you go?
Straight into it. So I got a job with a chap called Ian Hutchinson, who used to be the president of the British Chiropractic Association in Chelmsford, in Essex, and it was a brilliant job because he obviously was incredibly experienced, and him and his wife both ran the clinic. It was a really busy clinic, so it was sort of coming in, seeing a lot of patients,
Sink or swim.
worked, you know, crazy hours. And then after a couple of years, just thought, oh, I can't keep working this hard for somebody else. I'd rather be doing, if I'm working this hard, I'd rather do that for myself
Like
than
in
for
your own
somebody
life.
else. So eventually I actually spoke to Scott, the guy that I bought this clinic off, and he was planning on moving back to Australia, and we got quite far down the process, but quite late in the deal decided that he actually wasn't going to move back to Australia, and therefore the clinic wasn't for sale. So at that point I said fine. I was gutted because I've, you know, gone to accountants, been to the bank, I've literally got everything lined up. And then he decided that at that point he wasn't going to sell. So I asked, you know, can I have first refusal if and when you do decide to go? And at that point I then went and found a premises and set up in Uckfield, so set up Uckfield Chiropractic Clinic about 20 years ago next year, so 19 years I've had it. So so did that, and then
you must have still been quite young at that point. That seems
I was,
quite a big commitment. Mid-20s?
Mid-20s.
Yeah.
So, and it was, and I kept working in Chelmsford as well as while I started up there, because obviously starting a clinic from scratch, obviously you've got no patients.
Doors open, no one's in.
So obviously, precisely. So this is different. Like buying a business that's already up and running is a completely different thing to setting up a clinic on your own. So yeah, it was a bit scary. And Katie, my sister, who still works for me now, came and helped me sort of on reception. Not that I was that busy that I needed reception help, but she helped me. Yeah, well, exactly. A little bit of company, and as and when it got busier, yeah, she sort of worked more. So yeah, no, and then I came here actually to see Scott while I was pregnant, and said to him, "Oh, you're never going back to Australia?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I'm selling the clinic." And I was like, "Oh,
why didn't you tell me?"
And he said, "Yeah, I've got some guy lined up to buy it." And I was like, "But I was supposed to have first refusal." And he was like, "Yeah, sorry, I forgot that. So you were." That's a bit awkward. And I was like, "Yeah, just a little."
I still want it.
But actually, I did say, and he said, "Well, would you still be interested?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's good, because everybody that's met the guy that wants to buy the clinic really doesn't like him, and they've also they're going to leave if he takes over the clinic, so there's not going to be much of a business." So anyway, I was off to Cornwall the next day, and he phoned me a couple of days later, and Cornwall was like, "Do you know, I'd much rather you buy the clinic. I'm so sorry, I forgot that I said that you know, could have first refusal, and you know, are you interested?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm definitely interested. Obviously, I'm fairly heavily pregnant right now, and I am..."
And Uckfield, you're 7 years in, that must have been quite busy by that point.
Exactly, yeah. So it was busy, and it was just like, okay, but I'm about to have to take some time off work, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, buying a clinic and actually not then being able to actually go and work there myself. He then surprised me with saying, because I want to leave for Australia in 3 weeks' time, so can you take it over then? I'm like, I think a sale of a clinic or a business is going to take a few more than 3 weeks. which it turned out to take about a year and a half because he was so disorganised. But anyway, we got there in the end with the help of the solicitors that were next to Bricks and Kay with the purchase. So
it really does take an age.
oh my
doesn't it?
gosh, I couldn't quite believe.
When we
how
buy
much it
archery
was.
partners, we first met in February.
Yeah,
And not that we got the keys as it were,
Yeah.
but it handed over on the 1st of August. And
yeah.
how's it taken so long?
I know. I mean, it was bizarre, and it was really odd anyway because I had taken over the business.
Just in all but name.
In all but name, and you know, well, actually, I had to change the name because obviously my business was a different business to him, but hadn't actually paid him any money for it. But anyway, we did. We sorted it out at the end, and so yeah, here we are, 13 years later.
and true testament to you actually, because I think it takes a lot of resilience and commitment
Yeah,
to be still sat here 20 years later,
Yeah.
really, if you're across the two sides.
yeah.
And I'm sure that hasn't come without hiccups
No.
along the way.
No,
And I
definitely.
think that leads me on to my next question. What are your lowlights, let's call them, of the journey so far?
Yeah, I mean, I had a difficult time about 7 years ago because I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was very difficult because I obviously very quickly needed to stop working to go and get treatment and have surgery, etc. And that was really difficult because chiropractors are fairly far and few between, as in, people actually looking for a job. So finding somebody last minute was
Is there
really
like
stressful.
agency staff you can call upon?
Not really.
What do you do?
There are locums, so
Yeah.
we did end up getting a locum in. We found somebody who came and covered, but she didn't do a great job. She wasn't really most people's cup of tea, and sort of went from working lots to suddenly just only working a day a week. So my business sort of did a big nosedive while she was off. Well, I was off and she was working. So, but luckily in the interim we found a really lovely locum who lived in Hove, and she came over once we managed to get this other lady.
Never mind.
Yeah, but unfortunately by that point lots of our patients had gone to other local clinics, so that did hit us quite hard, and it was quite hard to stomach because we'd got it to a really lovely busy point before that, and
That must have been very frustrating because, like I said, you built the business, and regardless of you being ill, you probably still felt an enormous amount of guilt because you're letting your clients down.
totally, exactly that, and
um,
and then occasionally bumping into your patient and being like,
Yeah.
wow, she was a bit different, and you're like, yeah, sorry about that, but again, didn't really have many options, so
What do you do?
now it would be a different thing because now between the clinics
You've got
there's-
Gary.
We've got Gary, we've got Chloe, we've got
Yeah.
Louise, and we've got Tom, and me. So there's lots of us, and there's 3 of us that work in Uckfield, and we all work in Hailsham as well. And then just in Hailsham, Gary and Tom both just work here. So now that wouldn't be such an issue. I'm about to be off work for a couple of months, and actually it's fine because everybody else is
It can
just
be managed
seeing my patients.
To everybody
and
else.
it's not a panic that
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here. But yeah, that was definitely a difficult time.
So you've got 4 full-time chiropractors.
Yeah, yeah.
Nikki, who's not in the camera.
Nikki, who's my lovely manager, who has
Yeah.
changed my world since I've had Nikki in it. Thank God for that. Honestly, I was
Save that if she had changed her name.
floundering, should we say, Nikki? Floundering, I think, a little bit, Katie, my sister, who works at the clinic as well, she did a lot of management, and her and my husband sort of took over everything while I was off having treatment, so I didn't really have to focus on clinic at all. But Nikki's just been amazing. She's just made my life so much easier, which is obviously just what you want a manager for. Totally.
Yeah.
Like, when Riley arrived earlier, Nikki had a big long list. I was like, sorry Riley, I've got to get through Nikki's list, and because of things to get sorted. But no, it's just been brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important.
Because then I can concentrate on what I'm good at, which is actually the treatment bit and the people bit, and Nikki can deal with all the stuff I don't really want to have to deal with.
I think often with business owners, you find yourself in the situation, like you've just said, where you're sick of running around like a lunatic for somebody else, and you're the type of personality that wants to go in, gun ho. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
We need those people. They're great. But that doesn't mean you might be the best chiropractor in the world.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're the best business owner in the world.
Of course not. No, not at all. It's very lucky I'm married to a financial advisor as well.
Yes.
It's not my strong suit.
They are to business.
They really are.
Yeah.
And when I'm like, I'm just going to go set up my own business. I mean, naive, mid-20s.
But you need that sometimes.
Off I did it. Well, exactly, because otherwise people won't go and do it, will they? And then the reality of running your own business kicks in when you've got bills to pay and not much necessarily coming in or whatever.
I think you're right. Initially, it's all fairy tales. And,
yeah.
You might not see what goes on beyond you being there those hours.
And it's a very different thing working for somebody as opposed to working for yourself. So, I often have chiropractors who, at the moment, everybody works, they're all self-employed, but they all work within my clinics. But, and sometimes people sort of say, I'd like to run my own clinic someday. And I have friends that graduated at the same time as me that are still working at the same clinics that they started at, because they just don't have any of that stress. They literally leave clinic and don't have to think about it until the next time that they are in clinic, whereas that doesn't obviously happen.
I think you just get different influences, don't you? Both my mum and dad have got their own businesses, and so maybe I felt I went in a bit more aware of what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe my expectations were different to another member of staff whose parents have always been employed all of their lives, so maybe it just shapes you differently as a person.
Similar, both of my parents ran their own business. My mum's a farmer, still running a farm in her late 70s, and my dad used to run a garage business, and so I've always sort of had that, and I've always sort of known that I was going to be my own boss.
Strong-willed.
Yeah,
it's funny because
one way to put it.
Riley and I attended a lunch on Thursday last week at the Hydro, and Alex Polizzi was the guest speaker.
Oh, really?
Do you know who she is?
Yeah, totally.
And she touched on her mum, who's 80 and still working full time and will not slow down.
Yeah, same as
and you think that just mirrors onto Alex.
Yeah.
That's their
Exactly, that's just what we do. And it doesn't matter that I'm a woman. My mum was quite rare being a female farmer and being the one in charge of the farm. Everyone would be like, oh, so it's your dad's farm? No, well, it's my parents' farm.
Yeah.
My mum was the one that ran it because my dad had his own business. So, very much so. So,
shapes you differently.
It does, definitely. And I farm in my spare time, so when I'm not in clinic, I am working on the farm. Chasing cows, or cows chasing me, one way or the other.
Keeps you busy.
It does keep me very busy.
That's probably a nice escape, actually.
It's really nice.
Yeah, if it's not a full-time reality. It's
exactly.
Escape from reality.
A couple of half days a week, and then at weekends I'm sort of in the tractor moving the food around for the cows, and it does often make me laugh because I just think sometimes if my patients could see me now, the other side of me. But
one of my friends in property over in Eastbourne, he spends half a day a week at the big cat sanctuary.
Oh yeah.
And that's his escape.
Nice.
It's
really nice.
All day, every day.
I love my cows.
They don't answer back.
No, exactly. They might try and jump the odd gate.
I'm very grateful as long as you give them some food.
Exactly. So as long as you're doing the right thing. But
So, is there a particular high point of your career?
I mean, I just feel very lucky. I genuinely do that I just love my job.
Makes it a lot
it's
easier.
not everybody loves what they do, and I do, and I love being able to help people, and I'm not trying to sound whatever.
That's the right word. You are helping.
I just genuinely love it. I get really upset with myself if a patient isn't improving, when I think they should be, and we've done several different things, and I find that difficult when you don't help somebody, because obviously, as with anything in life, not everybody will suit chiropractic. The vast majority will, but not everybody will. And we all have slightly different styles within chiropractic as well, so not any one of us that work at my clinics do exactly the same thing. We'll do lots of stuff.
So you pick up on things during the time you're practicing.
Of course, and as a chiropractor, like with lots of careers, you have to do CPD, so you have to do continued professional development every year. So you have to do a certain number of hours learning with other people and a certain number of hours learning on your own. So it's up to you whether you want to go on a course where you learn how to do adjustments in a different way, or whether you want to learn how to treat people with needles, or doing acupuncture or dry needling. So there's so many different paths you can take within it, but that's also the benefit of having so many of us here. So if I'm not perhaps getting
specialise in different areas,
I can just say, right, can you maybe go and have a couple of sessions with Gary and see whether his style of treatment suits you better? 9 out of 10 times, it works like that. So it's really good. So it's nice having that sort of other people's backs.
I could relate that to sales in a way, whereby I might not get on with somebody, they might not suit my personality.
Yeah.
But the other person in the office, they might be like best friends.
Exactly that. So, there's normally somebody that can fill that gap, and again, that's the bonus of having, 5 of us that can sort of bounce off each other.
I'm really enjoying getting to know more about you and the firm, actually. What we haven't sort of ironed out is, what are the services exactly that you do offer here?
So we literally can treat any age person. So I've had babies literally in the first week of their life come in for treatment. It's just the best thing. It just ultimately looks like I'm having a hug most of the time, because you're just doing the most gentle treatment, really gentle.
What might that be for?
So perhaps if they've had a really difficult birth, maybe they got stuck coming out of birth canal, maybe they ended up having forceps or Von-2s used on them. Even babies that are born through C-section, sometimes because they're not actually being born through the birthing canal, it can cause issues with their lungs. And so babies that perhaps don't settle very well, that cry a lot, we see them colicky babies. Some babies come out of utero with their head stuck in one position because they've potentially been stuck in the birthing canal for a very long time with their head in a certain position. So it's the most gentle stuff. It literally doesn't look really like you're doing anything, and I love treating babies and children, because they just respond so well to treatment, and they're not on the back, they're not resisting. So no, it's really nice. But on the flip side, literally I've got patients that are in their 90s that I'm seeing at the moment. So literally any age, when we treat lots of families, so we literally sort of have grandparents, parents, their kids, their grandkids, it's really nice when you get to see the whole sort of family.
As well as that, because chiropractic isn't just about your spine, is it?
No.
I've been here for many different reasons.
Yeah. And so, we're specifically known for treating the spine, but because the spine obviously is where all your nerves come out of, and that's what controls everything else around the body. But I've today treated feet, shoulders, neck, headaches, a couple of knees as well today. So it literally can be any part of the body, and we can do, and it really varies, like depending on the person. So it depends. If somebody comes in with osteoporosis, obviously we're not going to do like you see all the cracking videos on YouTube and TikTok. So we're literally not going to crick and crack their joints. You use much more gentle techniques. So we've got like something called the activator, or the table has all these drops on it that we can use.
Much
and
softer.
Much
less
softer.
invasive.
Yeah, totally. And it just depends on the person and how they how you think they're going to respond to treatment. But also, when they start coming in, you sometimes take 2 or 3 appointments to work out what type of treatment suits that person best. You know, you may do an adjustment one way or the other on them and they love it and it makes an immediate impact, or you might find that it hasn't made much difference and therefore you're going to try a different way of doing it. But again, that's the benefit of seeing a chiropractor. We've got so many different techniques under our belt that there's always something that's going to be able to help them.
So, Joe Bloggs might not know.
Yeah.
And a difficult question probably. What is the difference between you and an osteopath?
So it's the perennial question we asked a lot.
I couldn't resist that one.
Here it's coming. It always is coming. So we're fairly similar, to be honest. So chiropractors probably do more manual adjustments than osteopaths, but these are real generalisations because you'll get some osteopaths that just do lots of manual manipulation as well. Osteopaths tend to do a lot more soft tissue work, and chiropractors tend to just work mainly on your joints.
Okay.
So at all my clinics we have sports massage therapists that work here. So if we know, for instance, you come in, your pelvis is a bit tight, we do some adjustments, but we know that your hamstrings are really tight and actually you would really benefit from a massage, then I will suggest you go and concentrate and have a massage before you're seen by the chiropractor again next time to help your body improve quicker. So, it's why we have these different therapists that work within our clinic so that we can get people better faster.
I think you've answered that beautifully.
Thanks.
The laser treatment you offer.
Yes, so that's a fairly new thing to people. Vets have been using it on animals for a long time, but it didn't get approved for a while for human use. But it's a fantastic addition to our treatments that we've got. Not many clinics have class 4 laser at their disposal, so we invested in that a couple of years ago.
I've used it when I damaged my foot.
Yes, so essentially it helps the body heal much quicker. So it increases the blood supply to the area, but it also increases the energy in individual cells, but obviously you're doing that by the tens of thousands of cells, and therefore the body can heal much quicker than if you're perhaps using just massage or dry needling. So, it's not necessarily that we use it on everybody, but it is something that is so beneficial, and again, sort of all ages can have it. It's recommended, for so many things, like most major sports teams will have a laser at their disposal. Amazingly, not England women's rugby team, because I went and massaged them when they were doing the World Cup.
Really?
Yeah. And I was speaking to their medical team, and amazingly, they don't use chiropractors at all, which the whole team was like, please do some adjustments on me. And they don't use
Especially
laser.
at that level.
It seems bizarre,
You would assume.
but it's a little bit more traditional. Chiropractors are, by some sections of medicine, are looked on as alternative therapists that don't have much science behind it, which is not the case. But they think, there has been this opinion sometimes where they think there's a bit of quackery going on. And, I've had this actually said to me before, like, I said, yeah, it's amazing. It's getting much better now. People are much more aware of what we can do. And we're very aware of what we can and can't do. Like, when we know that somebody needs an MRI and we need to stop treatment, we stop treatment, send them for an MRI, and then pass them on to the appropriate consultant that they need to see. So,
You must have a fair few obligations you have to follow.
Of course, yeah.
I imagine your indemnities are very high.
Exactly, they are, and it's why, as a new patient, we spend a whole hour with people so we can go over your full medical history and work out what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, and obviously we're doing the testing that also confirms this. So, we're not just blindly going in and adjusting people, we're testing whether it's appropriate for you and whether you're at risk of any injury or not, and we try and explain that to each individual patient.
I think that's a really good point for viewers to hear, that you do actually offer a full new patient meeting.
Exactly, full hour.
Fact find, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly what it is, quite literally. And normally that includes treatment at the end,
And how
unless
you
for
can-
any reason we think you need an X-ray or an MRI or whatever to move forward. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I really hope that everybody is enjoying
you.
listening and learning all about you.
Thank you.
I certainly have, so I always like the
Waffled
story.
on.
No, you haven't waffled on whatsoever. So we would love for you to like, share, subscribe. Let us know if you're interested in hosting one of these podcasts. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate
Cheers.
it.